Namaskar and a very good evening to all of you. It is now my honor to invite onto the stage our guests for today, the President of the Pune International Center, Dr. Raghunath Mashelkar, the Vice President, Dr. Vijay Kerkar, and our chief guest for today, Professor Manmohan Sharma.
Ramesh Mashilkar is known to talk about innovations all the time, grassroots to high tech. So I thought it will be my tribute to him to talk about innovations. And let me start by saying a very simple thing, that great innovation which is all inclusive, which happened very rapidly, and that is the mobile phone. So innovations have been, but this word is being used rather very loosely. Everybody thinks that they are innovating in a big way. Invention refers to any new idea that works, because often there is a confusion between invention and innovation. Innovation refers to ideas which are converted to profitable use. Innovation is basically the oxygen for your future. To lead industry, you have to innovate properly. Innovation is not a functional activity, it is a business activity, and you need every component of business, sales, marketing, manufacturing as a piece of it. The other hard fact is innovation cannot be scheduled. Transition to the new system is typically fast and non-linear. Some technologies, just to give a small background, I started by telling you about mobile phone, but I want to give you some simple example. When ball pens were innovated, it took many years between invention and innovation of ball pen. I think it was more than 10 years. Same thing about helicopter. Transistor, then we had tapes, then we had CDs, and now we have digital. Xerox, now we had to go, when photocopies came, what an arduous process it was, and you had to Xerox. It was very difficult to send communications. Today we have instant communications because of email, internet. And most recently, closer home, what is changing the dynamics of the entire energy system in the world is fracking for shale gas. It's an extraordinary innovation because it's changing completely the dynamics. Now, innovation would obviously depend critically upon research. And there are certain traits of research which people should understand, that research is subjective, inspirational, and often irrational. I emphasize, often irrational. It is not a very structured activity. It can be described as a random walk in a blind valley to find whether it is really blind. Results of research are seldom known in advance. Good researchers need curiosity and endurance. They must have strong willpower and a passion for solving problems. The other hard fact is innovation is tough to manage and very easy to stifle. Now comes this very uncomfortable fact, and there are many captains of industry here. While management demands consensus, control, certainty, and the status quo, creativity thrives on the opposite: instinct, uncertainty, freedom, and iconoclasm. Management and creative are antithetical. And that is another amusing thing, most bureaucrats and legislators regard R&D folks as welfare queens. Innovation requires knowledge and therefore depends on education. Innovation requires space to unfold and therefore dependent on underlying political conditions. Innovation requires backing of the society, thus appreciations and comprehensions are crucial. Now let's see how, without innovating, how we will increase productivity of less and less arable land and to witness marked increase to feed 9 billion people by 2050. Now, their demands are much more today, and one of the reasons why we are having problems in India is that we haven't kept pace with the innovations in the agriculture sector, and very badly needed in that sector. But when we take up something, we seem to do a good job. Now see the impact of horticulture in Maharashtra. Maharashtra has become #1 in pomegranate. Now quality of life is highly impacted by technical progress that everybody knows. Look at the variety and quantity of food that we have. Impact on life expectancy. In India at independence, it was 28 years, it is above 60. And see what is happening in Japan, what is happening in particular in Japan, where you see people living for long life, and that whole demand on medicine and implants is changing radically. Now, a subtle distinction between science and technology. Technology is the systematic orchestration of all knowledge and experience to lead to something practical and commercially useful. And technology should be demarcated from scientific pursuits which are concerned with creating new knowledge and opening new frontiers, and its own right is also a cultural activity. To my economics friends, I want to say it's very difficult to drill this thought in the minds of a very eminent economist, but Nobel laureate Solow in economics has said 50% of the economic growth can be attributed to technology. In advanced countries, it could be 70 to 80%. Now you see, for example, country like United States, or take France. A country like France today doesn't have much of a place for many technologies. Unless they are highly advanced technology, they can't compete because of high labor costs and the work culture. And in the language of financiers, technology is big C of the capital and is an expensive equity, and ability to make advances becomes sharper. Technology is a crucial instrument, even a weapon to compete internationally in a truly free market. Now, I would emphasize on the next point that technology development should be like rowing exercise and not a relay race. Technology can create an altogether new trajectory for economic revolution, and of course it is nutrition. Now, quantum jump takes place through discontinuities and not through a linear path. Now, growth is based on discovery as well as market-driven approaches. Now, economists are very fond of using this language. Both international and national empirical evidence have recognized the role of technology progress in economic growth through increase in what they said, total factor productivity. Entrepreneurs are generally innovators and developers in the economy. These entrepreneurs facilitate learning by doing in embodied and disembodied technical progress. Innovation requires an open mind and an atmosphere that encourages people to imagine, think broadly, collaborate, capture serendipity, about which I'll say something more, and have the freedom to create. This is called innovation ecosystem. Curiosity needs to be coupled with the ability to critically evaluate data, accept input, and ready to adopt the change. Lack of imagination kills many a project. Patience is a mandatory condition if innovation is to thrive. Frustrating experience in a way, you keep on doing experiments. Suddenly one day you find everything has come in place and you have hit upon the brilliant idea. There is a need for tenacity to overcome technical obstacles and to champion their bold new ideas in the face of disbelief. There is no one predictable path to successful innovation. Half the great innovations in the world came from great insights. The other half happened by accident, and none of them on a schedule. Now, this is a long-time technology investor whose view I have quoted. Innovation can be a messy and inefficient process. It is not one that can be managed through simple metrics. Innovation process is driven by need to understand how something works or why it doesn't, to grow revenue, reduce costs, or increase productivity, to solve a customer's problem, or to keep healthy and save lives. This is in the language of DNA of invention. Now, serendipity. Now, first of all, let me say serendipity never strikes uninitiated persons. Serendipity, otherwise you say, oh, let's not worry, one day I'll get this serendipitous discovery. It has never happened to uninitiated person. Serendipitous events have often changed the course of science. It is possible to create an environment where serendipity gets a chance to work. The former president of Royal Society alluded about how organized research occurred in industry. World War II was one of the most extraordinary events for innumerable innovations during wartime. Cost is not a consideration, just deliver. Now, why do we support research, blue skies, whose fruits are unpredictable? This is why most support for basic research comes from government. I mention this because there are some captains of industry who sometimes make this statement, let research be left to private sector. Nowhere in the world, including the highly capitalist country, United States, depends on that. Still, tremendous amount of fund is coming from national agencies, NSF, NIH and all. So, government support is absolutely essential for fundamental research. And I repeat and say, science-based is the absolute bedrock of economic performance, and high time economists recognize that. There are three reasons why governments invest in their science base. For the new knowledge that is produced, to buy a ticket in the wider club of knowledge producers, for the successive cadres of trained young people, some of whom will cycle back into the knowledge producing process, while others carry its product out into industry, business, public service. Researchers are in the main driven by curiosity. On the other hand, their patrons these days, primarily government, on behalf of taxpayers, are driven by economic practicalities. This causes tension. And unless we create culture where the best young people are free to express their creativity and set their own agendas, and I emphasize the last part, not being entrained in the hierarchies of deference to their seniors, no matter how distinguished this may be. Dilemma of an innovator. Ideas may be considered revolutionary or pedestrian, faces humiliation. And I greatly emphasize, being in educational enterprise for all my life, genius prefers homogeneity of individuals rather than heterogeneity of groups. We in the universities have the spiritual freedom to try new ideas. Smaller firms therefore have greater propensity to take risks, and therefore they are able to innovate. Good innovation requires you to have a broad mix of individuals. These range from pioneering extroverts, who are possibly even stormy and irrational, at one end of the spectrum, to solid systematic team players in the middle, to dogmatic, rigid, or even reactionary characters at the other extreme. So you see what kind of mix you require to have. Now, some uncomfortable statements. CEOs and boards have become the major impediment to sustaining innovation. So more than innovation, budgets dictate behavior. It takes courage to view innovation as an enabler, not the enemy of earnings. Now, here you will see the deadly disease. Seeking consensus for all breakthrough innovations is a deadly thing. It wastes valuable time and can dilute creative concepts. CEO can protect an environment culture, learn from failures rather than punish or stigmatize them. Failure is an integral part of the innovation process. Innovation requires change, and change requires courage. Instilling a climate that recognizes the critical need for innovations and encourages and rewards innovative behavior requires change in the mindset of many CEOs. In the end, I am going to make a statement for this. A fertile relationship between science and engineering is required. One of the finest example is LED, which was serendipitous. Inspiration to study the semiconductive properties of molecules came from curiosity, but was rapidly paralleled by the desire to make something from it. Innovation is the electric charge that makes the world's heart beat. To predict the future of technology is more or less to predict the future of economics. Fruits of science are required for vaccines against pandemics, better food supplies, clean energy, more robust networks, equitable policies to preserve ecosystem and climate. The pace of scientific innovation and its acceptance by the public and business community increased during the 20th century. Where I quote this China, when China has openly said in its manifesto that for their 15-year plan for linking 60% of the country's overall economic growth to scientific and technological innovations. Now, we as a nation will have to innovate to survive. We need to nurture best minds and be elitists entirely from brilliance point of view and a passion for what they do. Remember, we cannot feed tomorrow's population with today's agriculture. No way. Lastly, I want to emphasize on certain points. Mistakes are common not because people or firms are incompetent, but because they are continuously dancing on the edge of knowledge. The ability to learn from failure is critical to making progress. And what is the most serious lacuna in India? That is, there is a total lack of ownership for failures. And lastly, I had made similar address to Indian Chemical Manufacturers Association 3-4 years ago. Each company should consider appointing a chief innovation officer, and there will be some chance of innovations getting a boost. There are many things. We, the leaders in the case of technology adoption, and look at the status. Since you mentioned, I'm provoked to say something about something you may like to mention, consider for. Look at the number of ports that exist in Gujarat. With such a long coastline in Maharashtra, where are the ports? There are many things. Just as Maharashtra showed tremendous success in horticulture, becoming #1 in pomegranate, almost #1 in guavas. Now, that means it is possible. And if you want to take a provocative topic for Maharashtra, is sugarcane the right crop? 12-month full irrigation, every damn thing is subsidized. What is the end? Even export is subsidized. In that 12-month, we can grow with full irrigation 3 crops. 60% of vegetable oil being imported. Are we not capable of even, there was a time when we were exporting. There was a time when we were exporting pulses. And since Maharashtra does grow pulses, such a serious lacuna, and look at the price of pulses today. What price you are paying for tur dal and all. And India, now Australia is growing pulses to export to India. Imagine. 20%, 25%, and hardly any country produces pulses. And some countries are taking up with export. Now United States, with all the shale gas available, they will now promote new fertilizer plants. With China is 45 million tons of ammonia, almost 50 million tons. We are still struggling the same. Last 14 years, no new fertilizer plant has been put up in India. And we still keep on debating this issue or that issue. So there are many things which we can do in our country, and since you are talking of topical thing and you want to take up this topic, so I ventured out of turn to make some statement. Thank you very much.